the message that is being put forward so brazenly by the corporate press is submit, submit, submit. You lost an election. Fine, let's pretend that happened. Now you have no right to say anything. Sit down, shut up, and go home, and you will never be heard from again. You had people like Wajahat Ali from CNN, who obviously really wants a thriving Republican opposition, talking about how the Republican Party has to be destroyed and burned down to the ground as a result of Trumpism. He, of course, would not have been saying this in 2012 or 2008 and 2004. This is unprecedented. So I think what Trump has demonstrated to certain elements of the right is that they can win, that they can win on their own terms, and that they can have fun doing so. These are all unprecedented, and the corporate press is trying to do everything in its power to unring this bell, and I don't see how they could do it.
What do you think?
I have many thoughts on this. I was just wondering, one thing I wanted to comment on that is that I thought it was really interesting how you saw this play out in media polling. So the media would put out a poll that said Donald Trump was down, 87 points or whatever. And the response from many people, like normal people, would just be like, that's just not true. And they had so clearly internalized that these polls were intentionally false, that they were much less susceptible to them than the pundit class, which is just very interesting. But I'm wondering, do the media realize they're in this situation? They seem to be operating as if they still control the conversation in the way that they would have even 5 years ago. Do they know what's going on or not?
No.
How does it relate?
So first of all, here's another story that hasn't been told. RealClearPolitics.com is a site which a lot of people like. They're not partisan at all. They have come all over the kind of political spectrum. If you look at the main race, Susan Collins, if you look at all the polls, literally every single poll had her down from either 1 point to 12 points. She ended up winning by 8, which is not close. And Maine is traditionally a blue state, although they do having Republican senators. No one is talking about how did we get this race that wrong. No one is talking about how polling in an era of COVID is close to impossible. They have to believe what they're spitting out there, because it is the job of corporate media to construct a narrative, to construct a storyline that is in some way related to reality, but not at all. And the storyline that they had told themselves and told their congregants for 4 years is Donald Trump is the head vampire, right? He's supernatural evil who's responsible for all kinds of unprecedented things in the world, including Armageddon with global warming, including plagues. COVID is his fault. And the spikes of COVID are his fault, including wars, which he's not a member of, but that's his fault somehow anyway. And as we all know from the movies, you kill the head vampire, all the minions scurry, and then you applaud, you're the good guys, and you go home. That's where the story ends. Even another way, even if in their own terms Donald Trump is literally Hitler, World War II didn't end with killing Hitler. You still had the Japanese to worry about. So even if you have either of those narratives, which these fairy tales they've taught themselves, they don't port out to reality. So I think they're shocked, and here's why I am very, very giddy. Because I would tell all the conservatives, listen to this. Imagine it's 2012, and you hated Barack Obama, and you thought he was the worst president ever, and how dare they put him over, and this guy's a fraud, phony, he hates America, and Mitt Romney had won, right? And you'd be so happy that November, yeah, we got rid of Obama, and then one day you're going to wake up, you'd be like, Mitt Romney is going to be president for 4 years, and he's going to be appointing people to the Supreme Court, and he's going to be putting his budget, and it's going to be this moment of what have we done. And I think the fact that Joe Biden seriously seems to believe that America is more divided than ever, which is true, that this is an opportunity for him as president to unite us, and he's going to do this by reaching out to Republicans. Joe Biden has done a better job defeating the Bernie people than he has at defeating the Trump people. And those Bernie people, I suspect, are going to have a very rude awakening.
Let's talk for a minute about this polling propaganda side of things. And I do want to call it propaganda. The people who I know in Swamp who are most angry about the polling are actually not the media people. The media people have no shame, so they don't really care that they got it wrong. They'll come up with some kind of hand-waving spin about, oh yes, there's some justification for the ABC Washington Post poll to say that Donald Trump's going to lose Wisconsin by 17 points, or for the Fox poll, which says that he's going to lose Michigan by 12 points, et cetera, et cetera. The thing that is interesting to me about Mad is that it's all of these corporate lobbyists and people who are paying for private polling.
Yes.
That was also telling them really stupid things. In fact, I have someone who's a friend of mine who works for a major company, and he was talking about how my belief that Susan Collins was going to pull it out was just laughable. And you know, we've seen the numbers, we've seen the district level numbers. There is no possibility that something like this can happen. Obviously, she did. She's
not close.
Not close. She's really good at winning, even winning in a ranked voting situation, which was supposed to be to undercut her. And she was there dancing with a guy in a lobster outfit, which looked amazing. The thing that I think is fascinating about that is they're mad because they got bilked by polls that they thought were not propaganda. The media polls, those are propaganda. The ones behind the scenes, those are supposed to be the real stuff. You pointed out that it's almost impossible to poll in a time like this. I fear, though, that just like we saw after 2016, nothing's going to change here. We're going to be back in 2024. Whoever the Republican nominee is going to be down by 12 to 18 points in every key state. And they're just going to be talking about, why spend any money on this guy? Why, like, throw any, effort behind him or her? Why try to, do something to even, conceive of winning this election? There's no way you're going to beat Kamala.
Well, I don't think anyone's ever going to think there's no way we're going to be able to beat Kamala, because remember, this is someone who couldn't get African Americans to vote for her in her own primary. So I'm not too concerned about her being what she's going to be the nominee.
Just so infectious.
Yeah, do you see how she's dressed as the Joker in 60 Minutes? I think she was trying to reach out to the incel community. But I think there's something else that I would add to that, which is, let's suppose a lot of these polls were simply due to incompetence. Because polling is the result of trying to gauge who's going to come out and vote. Again, that's very hard to do in the era of COVID. This is going to fuel enormous cynicism from mainstream people toward corporate media, because even if it's simply due to incompetence, the fact that they keep getting it wrong will be perceived as lies. And this is something that is very, very healthy and helpful toward the future of this country, because the more people understand that, as you said, they have no shame, they have nothing but contempt for you and your values, that they want to send your kids to school to be trained to hate you and what you stand for, the more people understand this and appreciate what they're dealing with, the healthier and better it's going to be for this country.
So I was reminiscing last week about how I thought you insulted me, but it's possible that you just insulted generally and it hit close to home. So I took it personally.
I did not insult you.
It was beautiful, and I'm really thankful for this. So don't.
I didn't, though. I'm telling you, whatever you're perceiving.
You were saying that conservatives were like the character in Memento who just wake up every day forgetting everything that they have ever known. And when you talk, Ben, about how like in 4 years it's going to be the same thing, or 2 years, I think there is a truth to that, in that people need things to be the same so that they can continue to operate the way that they've been operating. But it does seem very different that even if the people on the TV are pretending that things are the same, they're not actually the same at all. And the American people have completely, or a big chunk of the American people have like completely unplugged from that system. They aren't going to forget what the polls were like in 2016 or 2020. And I've even heard a lot of people praise 2018 polling, but I remember that poll, like this one poll that I was asked about on TV, which had the Republican Senate candidate in a state down by 7 points, won by 8 points. And I will never forget that. It shapes so much about how you're expected to talk about things. Polls are everything in TV discussions, not policies, not, who these people are or why they might resonate, using any skill other than, can you read these poll numbers?
And let me give you a good example that's not partisan at all. Quinnipiac, I'll call them out. Quinnipiac is by far the most unreliable polling organization. What happens is they'll have a poll that says this person's up by 20 or that person's up by 20. And then, oh, look, new poll shows, the article writes itself, lather, rinse, repeat. If the corporate press had any integrity, and if there was an outlet, right or left, which constantly gets things consistently wrong, instead of writing stories about them, you would marginalize them and ignore them.